We are coming across some very serious news as it looks like a Navy Lieutenant 03 equivalent is finding himself going to have to spend the next 3 years in a Japanese prison and has now officially paid $1.6 million for a fatal mistake which has landed him in this situation from an incident of about a year ago. Now, obviously, we do cover on this channel a lot of times the quirky, weird, stupid stuff of social media where this stuff lands in the court of public opinion. But rarely do you see something on this scale where it's actually landing somebody in prison for a long period of time, and especially a foreign prison at that. To give the background story, we have Navy Lieutenant Ridge Hanneman Alconis. At this time, it's known that he was driving with his family up to Mount Fuji. They hiked up the mountain. Obviously, that comes with its own adaptations. As you go up and down, they come down, they hop in their vehicle, and they are driving away from Mount Fuji, where in a parking lot, it looks like he had struck 2 Japanese civilians, and they ended up losing their lives. Now, according to his spouse and other people that are having accounts of this, it does look like they are saying that he should be let off a little bit easier because he was suffering from altitude sickness, which is what made him go off the road, and he actually lost consciousness, which they're saying was not his fault. According to a Japanese court, the judge there said that he should have actually been aware of this, and he pretty much had the responsibility and the right to get off the road before any of this happened. Now, it does look like he has tried to appeal this as well, and there is some story about that right here. It says Ridge Alconis 34 is a free on bail while he appeals in Tokyo High Court a 3-year prison term for causing the deaths of 2 people and injuring a third in the parking lot of Fujinomiya in May 2021. He is seeking a suspended sentence in which he serves no time provided he adheres to conditions set by the court. And the lieutenant here says, I feel the pain, shame, and sorrow in every way possible. He testified to the 3-judge appellate panel on Wednesday. I feel the burden of the damage I've caused every minute of every day. To give you some context to this, the Japanese legal system has very little leeway as far as people getting off compared to the U.S. system, as it looks like even while I was there, we were warned and stationed there. Pretty much, if you were going to end up in a legal situation with the Japanese government, it was almost a considered loss because they have a 98 to 99% conviction rate. He was climbing Mount Fuji. I've done that myself. I can tell you it sucks. You have a headache, a bunch of other stuff. I never blacked out from that, but I will say that going up to those higher levels of altitude can affect you in many different ways, from nausea, confusion, headache, all these other things that, usually you should do your due diligence before you even go up there. And obviously this will affect every person differently. Now, according to this, they say a woman, 85, died that day. Her son-in-law, 54, died June 11th, and a second woman, 53, the daughter and wife of the other victims, were injured. They play by different social structures than the Japanese do, and there's a very different way of grieving, and they have a 3-tiered family system between the kids, the parents, then the grandparents, right? They all live together, and that's kind of like the way their structures are set up. And because of this, there's a lot of honor and tradition and things like that that go with this. One of those being that when you actually have something like this, you're supposed to go to the site and pray. That is something that this lieutenant did not know about, but he did observe another type of compensation, I guess you could say here, where he did offer the family $1.6 million. He's paid that out. And obviously, an 03 in the military is not making that amount of money on a military paycheck by any means. To give some context, that's probably about $6,185 a month, roughly around that ballpark for this guy, if he's been in as long as I think he has. But, this leads a lot of questions because his family is still living in Japan, in Yokosuka. He is currently waiting to actually arrive to the prison to start serving a sentence. Where will the family go? What happens after that? He's still technically active duty. Will the military still pay him the entire time? These are all administrative questions that are going through my head right now. He even goes on to say that while he's been out, he's been barred from driving anywhere in the country of Japan because under the SOFA agreement, they have removed his license. But he says he was hit by a car last month while bicycling as a result of being barred from driving in Japan, he said in court. He also said he and his wife are taking anxiety medication and their children are having difficulty in school and in their social lives. I also want to annotate this, that the Japanese medical system really does not value mental health, so I don't know if they're going to really understand or if that will translate the same as it would in a military or American type culture, looking at this perspective. According to the reports, this lieutenant has now been told to not say anything else about the case and essentially be quiet and move on with his life for the next 3 years while he's in Japanese prison. From that, the wife is still able to speak out and still talk about this, where she has essentially been begging and pleading with the press to get as much attention as possible to try and get President Biden to try and get clemency for him, to try and bring him back to the U.S. And a lot of this is stemming from culture of Japan not wanting Americans there, where essentially, people have seen Americans as people that cause trouble. Even the little E3, E nothing out there just making a ruckus. That does have a lasting impact and has probably affected this, as many people are very much in the realm of saying, but Americans don't really belong here, and maybe sometimes they'll even say on their perspective of, we've had instances like this where people have been released to the U.S. from the Japanese prison system and really don't serve the same sentence and get a slap on the wrist, essentially. And on top of that, it looks like the parents of this officer have a few words where they're kind of echoing what his wife says, and they say this: even if there was some sort of backroom deal that got him sent on a plane, his mother told Fox, every military person here in this country is at risk of the exact same thing happening to them, and policies need to change so it never happens to anybody again. And she said that the White House needs to come forward and say to Japan, you're our ally, but you made a mistake here, and he needs to come home right now so this never happens again. To give you guys perspective of Japanese prisons as well, these are not like American jails. These are places where they have to follow orders, recite verbiage that are in Japanese, not English. He will have to eat like fish heads and rice for the next 3 years. This is not, he earned his DVD player and gets to watch reruns of HGTV on the TV in the community room per se. This is a very different sentence than if he was in the U.S. I will say that I obviously want to support my military brethren that are out there, to support them coming home. If I would say anything, I'm torn, because I'm like, you still did take the lives of these two people and you injured 2 others. There has to be some accountability for that. It's not like you had a uncontrollable condition like a seizure, for example, you didn't know about, where I can maybe have a little bit more sympathy for this. But it also looks like I'm not the only one kind of having this divided look at it. As I did research on this subject, it looks like on the YouTube comments on the most viewed video for this, people are saying this. Ali Kulo says, it's a pity he'll be in prison for 3 years, but the lack of empathy the wife shows toward the true victims in this tragedy is astounding. Your husband drove recklessly and killed 2 people, ma'am. 3 years is the minimum of what should be serving. Anonymous says, she's angry. What a disgusting woman. I bet you the victim's family will trade places in a heartbeat. She's crying because they can't see him for 3 years. The victim's family will never see the victims because they are dead. This made me start to look at what are the laws here in the States, where I'm looking at a lot of variables, obviously based on state by state. It looks like that is about a 15-year maximum for vehicular manslaughter, a lower side of 5 years. To ask you guys, what do you guys think about this? Do you think 3 years is long enough? Do you think it should be more? Do you think he should serve back in the U.S. but more time? What do you think would be a good deal in order to make, I guess, amends of this and still allow this ally or relationship on this geopolitical sphere, as we've seen contentions rise, obviously with China. Obviously, we're seeing stuff happen with inside Japan as the Nationalist Party does come up and kind of go against that united front with the U.S. and Japan. Let me know down in the comments below. If you guys have other questions, concerns, video ideas, hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.